You're the only match. 4 words. That's all it took to throw a grenade into my perfectly quiet, carefully distant life. I stared at my father as he said it, like he was announcing the weather. His voice was flat, cold, the way it always was when he expected obedience. Like I was a broken vending machine he was trying to shake a soda out of. I should have walked out right then. Instead, I sat frozen in the stiff-backed chair in my aunt's living room, surrounded by people who once called me family. The air smelled like lemon-scented cleaner and fake sympathy. Rachel was curled dramatically on the couch, pale and frail in a designer hoodie, her head resting on Mara's shoulder like a tragic little angel. I hadn't seen most of them in years, not since the incident, not since Rachel's lies turned me into the family disgrace. "My name's Jasmine," I said finally, my voice dry, cracking the silence. "I didn't realize this was an ambush." Mara gave a tight smile. "It's not an ambush, sweetie. It's a family meeting." "Same thing," I muttered. Rachel looked up at me with those wide, glassy eyes. "Jazz, I didn't want it to be like this. If there was anyone else—" "But there isn't," my father cut in, his voice slicing through hers. "You're the only viable donor. The doctors confirmed it." I crossed my arms. "And you just assumed I'd say yes. You can't seriously be considering saying no," he snapped. "I didn't say no," I said, keeping my tone even. "I said you assumed." Haley, my mom, sat silently next to him, her hands folded in her lap like always. She wouldn't look at me. She never did when things got real. Rachel reached out a trembling hand. "I know we've had our differences." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Differences? That's what we're calling it now?" Mara's eyes narrowed. "This is your chance to make things right, Jasmine." "Right?" I turned to her. "You mean after the time your daughter told everyone I was sleeping with my boss? That kind of right?" "Let's not rehash the past," my father said sharply. "Of course not. The past was inconvenient. It made golden girls look tarnished and scapegoats look like survivors." I stood up. "I'll get tested. If it'll make everything right, fine." Rachel's face lit up. She actually smiled. "Thank you. I knew—" "I didn't say I was donating," I interrupted. "I said I'd get tested." My father's jaw clenched. "Don't play games, Jasmine." "Oh, I'm not," I said, turning to leave. "I'm just finally learning how to play yours." I walked out before anyone could say another word. My heart was pounding, but my face stayed calm. I'd practiced that look for years. They thought I was agreeing. They thought they'd won. They had no idea. I'd seen this moment coming for years. The message came 2 days before. A group text from Mara. "Family dinner Sunday. Important discussion. Please be there." No explanation. No subject. Just a demand wrapped in fake warmth. I almost deleted it. But something in my gut told me to go. And when I walked into that house and saw Rachel, sick, small, and still somehow smug, I knew why. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment the universe handed me the sharpest blade and said, "Cut carefully. You don't get to destroy someone and then come crawling back when you need a piece of them to survive. Not without consequences." Back at my apartment, I opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old journals, medical records, therapy notes, a USB drive, a printed email thread, a folded letter from my licensing board, dated 6 years ago. All of it. Everything they thought I'd buried. I sat on the floor and spread it out like a puzzle. My hands were steady. My breath was calm. They wanted me to save her, to be the good daughter, the forgiving cousin, the sacrificial lamb. I'd play the part. I'd smile. I'd nod. I'd let them think they'd broken me enough to comply. But I wasn't broken. I was just waiting. Waiting for the day the girl they called unstable, dramatic, a liar, was the only one who could save them. And chose not to. Not with a scream, not with a cry, not with a cry. Not with a scream, 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 not with a not with a scene, but with silence, with truth, with receipts. Because revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's just surgical. Jasmine? I looked up from the clipboard I'd been filling out. A woman in a navy blazer stood in the doorway of the transplant evaluation office. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense posture. I'm Dr. Bennett. You ready? I nodded and stood, smoothing the wrinkles out of my jeans. She led me down a quiet hallway, past a row of closed doors. The walls were a soft beige, the kind that hospitals love, neutral, forgettable. We stepped into her office, and she gestured for me to sit. The room was warm, full of books and plants. Not what I expected. Before we begin, she said, settling into her chair, I want you to know this part of the evaluation is confidential. My job is to assess your emotional readiness, not to pressure you. I nodded again. Okay. She studied me for a moment. You seem calm. I've had practice. She smiled faintly and clicked her pen. Let's start with your medical history. Any history of mental health conditions? I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I brought documentation. Diagnosed with acute stress disorder and anxiety 6 years ago. Therapy notes, prescription history, all in here. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Thank you. That's thorough. I handed it over. I figured you'd ask. She flipped through it, pausing at a few pages. This started around the time of a workplace incident? Yeah. Can you tell me what happened? I leaned back in the chair. My cousin told my boss I was having an affair with him, said I was unstable, obsessive. She showed him screenshots of texts I'd sent, completely normal ones, but taken out of context. She said I was a liability. Dr. Bennett looked up. And were you? No, but it didn't matter. He believed her. HR opened an investigation. I was put on leave, then let go. My license was suspended pending a psych eval. By the time I cleared it, the damage was done. She didn't write anything for a moment. Did your cousin admit to lying? No, she said she was concerned. Played the hero. My family backed her. Dr. Bennett nodded slowly. And now she needs a kidney. Yep. She tapped her pen against the folder. How do you feel about that? I shrugged. I'm here, aren't I? That's not the same as being willing. I met her eyes. I'm willing to be evaluated, to go through the process. I'm not promising anything. She nodded again. That's fair. There was a pause. The air felt heavy. You've been carrying this a long time, haven't you? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, Yeah, I have. She closed the folder. Would you be willing to share any supporting documents? Emails, messages, anything that might help me understand the full picture? I smiled faintly. Of course. I kept everything. That night, I dug through an old hard drive. It took me an hour to find the folder, labeled Do Not Open. Inside were screenshots, emails, therapy logs. I printed them out, one by one. There was one email I stared at for a long time, from Rachel to Charlie, my boss at the time. She's obsessed with you. I'm worried. She's not well. My hands curled into fists. I slid it into the envelope and kept going. At our next session, I handed Dr. Bennett the envelope. These are the emails, I said, and a few text threads. You'll see how she twisted things. She took it without a word, flipping through the first few pages. I also included a letter from my therapist. She's retired now, but she gave me permission to share it. Dr. Bennett nodded. Thank you. This is helpful. She paused, then looked up. Can I ask why you're going through with the evaluation? I tilted my head. Wouldn't you want to know if the person who ruined your life ever paid for it? She didn't respond to that, just wrote something down. A few days later, I was walking to my car when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Rachel. Just wanted to say thank you again. I know this can't be easy. I really appreciate you putting the past behind us. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. Instead of replying, I opened my voice memos. There was one from years ago, buried deep in the archive. I'd forgotten I had it. Rachel's voice, laughing. She thought she was so perfect. Little Miss Therapist. I just wanted to knock her down a peg, and it worked. I sent it to Dr. Bennett. No message, just the file. A minute later, I got a reply. Received. Thank you. I sat in my car for a long time. I wasn't angry, not anymore. I was ready. And Rachel? She had no idea what was coming. The first post came from Mara. So proud of my niece Jasmine for stepping up in a time of need. Family is everything. Chop, gratitude. From Ta, selfless love. Then Rachel shared a filtered selfie from her hospital bed, IV in her arm, looking like a sainted martyr. Some angels don't have wings. They have courage. Thank you, Jasmine. You're giving me hope again. I nearly dropped my phone, laughing. Within hours, my inbox flooded with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Old classmates, neighbors, even a former co-worker who once called me emotionally unstable to my face. So brave of you. We knew you had a good heart. It takes a big person to forgive. It was like watching people clap for a play they didn't realize was a tragedy. Then came the casserole. Mom showed up at my door with it wrapped in foil, her eyes darting like she was afraid someone would see her. I thought you might not be eating well, she said, stepping inside before I could say no. You've lost weight. I took the dish and set it on the counter. You didn't come here for that. She looked down. Your father wants you to be prepared. There might be media attention. I turned around slowly. Media? She winced. Rachel's story is gaining traction. A few local outlets reached out. Alan thinks you should have a statement ready. Something simple. Gracious. I stared at her. You want me to play the hero for the same people who called me crazy? She flinched. That was a long time ago. No, it wasn't, I said. It still happens every time I walk into a room and someone whispers. She sat down at the kitchen table, folding her hands like she was praying. Jasmine, this could be your chance to start over. I leaned against the counter. Ever wonder why I didn't sue you all for believing lies without asking me once? She didn't answer. I opened the fridge, shoved the casserole in, and shut the door. I'll write a statement when Rachel writes a confession. She stood slowly. You're angry? No, I said. I'm awake. She left without another word. That night, I charged my old phone and dug through the voice memos again. I knew there was more. And there it was, one from a party years ago when Rachel was drunk and careless. Honestly, I did her a favor. She was too perfect, too smug. She needed to be knocked down. And Charlie, please. He was never into her. I just gave him an excuse. I sat there listening to it twice. Then I emailed it to Dr. Bennett. Subject, additional context, no message, just the file. Within minutes, she replied. This helps clarify things. I'll be in touch soon. I closed my laptop and stared at the ceiling. They wanted a story. I'd give them one, but it wouldn't be the one they rehearsed. The next day, I got a call from Mara. Hi, sweetie, she chirped. I just wanted to say how proud we are of you. Everyone's talking about how brave you are. Uh-huh. And Rachel's been so emotional. She keeps saying how this might bring the family back together. I didn't say anything, Mara continued. I was thinking maybe we could have a little dinner after your next hospital visit. Just us girls, like old times. I finally spoke. The last time we had dinner, you told me I was an embarrassment. She laughed like I told a joke. Oh, Jasmine, that was years ago. Water under the bridge. Some bridges don't need crossing again, I said, especially when they're still on fire. She went quiet. Then, sweet as sugar, "Well, we'll see you soon. Take care of yourself." Click. I stared at the phone, then opened my camera roll. I had screenshots, texts from Rachel years ago, ones where she baited me into reacting, then used my responses as proof of instability. I sent them to Dr. Bennett, along with timestamps and a short note. She knew exactly what she was doing. Later that week, I got a message from someone I hadn't expected. Deacon. We used to work together. He was one of the few who didn't treat me like a pariah during the fallout. "Hey, just read about Rachel, crazy stuff. Hope you're okay." I replied, "Define okay." He sent back a shrug emoji. Then, "If you ever want to talk, I'm around. I remember more than you think." I stared at that message for a long time. Maybe I wasn't as alone as I thought. The next time I walked into Dr. Bennett's office, she didn't smile. "Jasmine," she said, closing the door behind me, "I've reviewed everything you sent. I also listened to the recordings." I nodded. "And?" She sat across from me. "This changes things. I'm going to request a family counseling session before we proceed further." "Why?" "Because I have concerns about your emotional safety, about the pressure being placed on you." I raised an eyebrow. "So I'm not the crazy one?" She gave me a look. "You never were." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. She leaned forward. "There are inconsistencies in Rachel's narrative. I need to explore them, formally." I nodded slowly. This was it, the beginning of the unraveling, and all I had to do was keep telling the truth. Rachel showed up to the counseling session in full performance mode, hair curled, makeup flawless, a silk scarf draped around her neck like she was auditioning for a Hallmark tragedy. "Hi, Jazzy," she said with a soft smile, sliding into the chair across from me. "You look good." I didn't respond, just looked at Dr. Bennett, who was already scribbling something in her notepad. She cleared her throat. "Thank you both for coming. This session is to explore any unresolved issues that might impact the transplant process. Honesty is important." Rachel folded her hands in her lap, all innocence. "Of course. I'm just so grateful we're even here. I know we've had bumps." "Bumps," I repeated. She nodded, eyes wide. "But I've grown so much since then. Haven't we all?" Dr. Bennett looked at me. "Jasmine, is there anything you'd like to say?" I leaned back in my chair. "I think it's interesting how Rachel keeps using vague words like bumps and differences, like she didn't actively destroy my career." Rachel's smile didn't falter. "That's not fair." "What's not fair?" I asked. "The part where you told my boss I was unstable? Or the part where you forged emails to make it look like I was harassing him?" Her voice dropped an octave. "I was trying to protect you." "From what? A promotion?" Dr. Bennett held up a hand. "Let's slow down. Rachel, can you explain what you meant by trying to protect her?" Rachel blinked, caught off guard. I just thought she was in over her head. I didn't want her to get hurt." "By getting a raise?" I said. "Or by dating someone you wanted for yourself?" Rachel's eyes flashed, but she quickly masked it. "That's ridiculous." Dr. Bennett scribbled again. "I forgave you, you know," Rachel said suddenly, her voice soft. "Even after everything." My jaw clenched. "Forgave me for what?" "For what you said to Mom. For how you embarrassed the family." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "You lied about me, ruined my job, and somehow I'm the one who embarrassed the family?" Dr. Bennett looked up. "Rachel, have you ever taken responsibility for what happened?" Rachel gave a little shrug. "We were young. People make mistakes." "Mistakes?" I said. "You called me a stalker." Rachel turned to Dr. Bennett. "This is exactly what I mean. She's still so angry. I don't think she's emotionally stable enough to make this decision." Dr. Bennett's pen stopped moving. I stared at Rachel. "You just proved my point. Again." Rachel's face twisted for a second, just a flicker, before she caught herself. Dr. Bennett stood. "I think we're done for today." Rachel looked startled. "That's it?" Dr. Bennett didn't answer her. She turned to me. "Jasmine, can you stay a moment?" Rachel hesitated, clearly wanting to protest, but Dr. Bennett gave her a look that shut her up. She grabbed her purse and left without saying goodbye. Once the door clicked shut, Dr. Bennett sat back down. "There are inconsistencies I must report to the Surgical Review Board," she said calmly. I raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Rachel's behavior, her inability to acknowledge harm, the manipulation. It raises ethical concerns about coercion." I didn't say anything. She continued, "I'm not saying this ends the process, but it changes it. Significantly." I nodded. "Good." She leaned forward. "You've been incredibly composed through all this, but I want you to know, you don't have to be." I looked at her. "If I let myself feel everything, I'd never stop." She nodded slowly. "Then let me carry some of it for you." I exhaled. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Later that night, I got a text from Rachel. "Wow, you really made yourself the victim in there. Classic." Then another one. "You think you're smarter than me? You're not. You're just bitter." I didn't respond. I forwarded the messages to Dr. Bennett. No caption, just proof. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen to find my dad at my table, drinking coffee from my mug. I froze. "How did you get in?" "Your mother let me in," he said without looking up. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "About what?" He set the mug down. "You're sabotaging this." I raised an eyebrow. "By telling the truth?" "You're dredging up ancient history to avoid doing the right thing." "The right thing," I repeated. "You mean giving up an organ to someone who tried to ruin my life?" "She's your family." "So am I." He stood, towering over me. "You've always been difficult, always needed to be the victim." I stepped closer. "And you've always needed a scapegoat." I just stopped volunteering. He clenched his jaw. "You'll regret this." I smiled. "No, you will." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I stood there, heart pounding, but steady. Dr. Bennett was right. I didn't have to be composed, but I was, because I was finally in control. The ethics board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. By 10:17, I was medically disqualified as a donor. Dr. Bennett's report was clear. Due to the psychological trauma inflicted by the recipient, proceeding with the transplant would pose significant emotional risk to the donor. Recommendation: disqualify on ethical grounds. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I just sat in the hallway outside the hospital's transplant wing, staring at the wall while the news settled like dust. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Call me. Your father is livid." I put it face down on the seat beside me. Then I stood, grabbed the manila envelope from my bag, and walked out of the building. Charlie's office hadn't changed. Same glass walls, same overpriced art on the walls, same fake warmth in the receptionist's voice when she said, "He's just finishing up a call. Can I tell him who's here?" "Jasmine," I said, watching her expression flicker. She nodded and disappeared down the hallway. 2 minutes later, Charlie stepped out. He looked older, hair thinner, suit tighter, but still smug. "Wow," he said, forcing a smile. "This is a surprise." I held up the envelope. "I figured it was time." He gestured toward his office. "Let's talk." I walked in, sat down, and placed the envelope on his desk. "What's this?" he asked, already uneasy. "Emails. The originals. The ones you said were real." He didn't touch it. "I don't know what you're trying to—" "She forged them," I said. "You knew. You used them anyway." He leaned back. "That's a serious accusation." "I have timestamps, IP logs, the voice memo of her bragging about it. Want to hear it?" He swallowed. Why now? Because Rachel needs a kidney, I said, and everyone's acting like I'm the villain for not handing one over. He looked away, jaw tight. You don't understand the pressure I was under. HR was breathing down my neck. She came to me crying, said you were unstable, and you didn't think to ask me? I was protecting the company. I stood. No, you were protecting yourself. He looked up. Are you going to go public with this? I picked up the envelope and slid it back into my bag. Did I say that? He blinked. Then what do you want? I want you to remember this moment, I said, when you realize the lies you used to climb are the same ones that could pull you down. I walked out without waiting for a response. That night, I met Deacon at a little coffee shop near my apartment. He was already at a table, nursing a tea. Hey, he said, standing when he saw me. You look intense. Long week, I said, sitting across from him. He leaned forward. I've been thinking about what you said, about Rachel. I nodded. She dragged you into it too, didn't she? He sighed. She asked me to lie, said if I backed her up, it would help the family. I told her no. She stopped talking to me after that. Why didn't you say anything? I was scared, he admitted, and honestly, I thought no one would believe me. I looked at him. Would you be willing to say it now? On paper? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I owe you that. I pulled out my phone, and her employer might want to hear it too. His eyes widened. You're not playing around. No, I said. Not anymore. The next day, I got the official letter from the hospital. Donor disqualified due to psychological risk stemming from unresolved family trauma. Alternative donors must be pursued. I read it twice, then forwarded it to Mara, Rachel, and my father. No message, just the facts. Within 5 minutes, my phone rang. It was Mara. You selfish little... I hung up. Then another call. Dad. Ignored. Then a text from Rachel. You think you've won? You're sick? You've always been sick. I stared at it, then typed, no. I'm just finally healed enough to say no. I didn't hit send. I deleted it. She didn't deserve a response. Later that afternoon, Deacon emailed me a signed statement. He'd CC'd the hospital and Rachel's employer. I read it 3 times. In 2018, Rachel approached me and asked me to corroborate a false narrative about Jasmine involving inappropriate workplace behavior. I declined. I now realize my silence contributed to the harm caused. I replied with 2 words, thank you. Then I sat back and let the dominoes fall. By the end of the week, Rachel's employer launched an internal ethics review. The transplant board closed her file and advised her to seek alternative donors. And me? I sat in my apartment, sipping tea, watching the sunset for the first time in years, without feeling like I was drowning. They wanted a kidney. I gave them consequences. Charlie called me the next morning. I let it ring. Then he emailed, please, can we talk? I'm not trying to make excuses. I just need to explain. I waited a full day before responding. Tomorrow, noon, same office. He was already pacing when I walked in. The blinds were drawn. His tie was loose. There were 2 coffees on the table. He'd guessed my order right. I didn't touch it. Jasmine, he said, voice low, thank you for coming. I sat down across from him. You have 10 minutes. He ran a hand through his hair. I panicked. Back then, HR was threatening to open a lawsuit. Rachel came to me with those emails, and I didn't question them. I should have. I know that now. You didn't just believe her, I said. You used it. You let them push me out. I was up for promotion, he admitted. They said if I handled it quietly, I'd get it. I was stupid and selfish. I leaned forward. And now? He sighed. Now I'm terrified you'll go public, that I'll lose everything. I stared at him. Did I say I would? No, he said quickly, but you could, and you'd be right to. I stood up. I didn't come here to threaten you. I came to remind you that people like me don't forget. He looked up at me. So what now? I picked up the coffee he'd bought me, took a sip, and set it down. Now, you live with it. Later that day, I met Deacon at the park. It was cold, but the sun was out, and the walking path was quiet. You okay? He asked, falling into step beside me. Better than I've been in years, I said. You? He gave a half smile. Still waiting for the fallout. She'll spin it, I said. She always does. Not this time, he said. I sent her boss a copy of my statement and the audio clip. There's not much to spin. I looked at him. That was brave, he shrugged. It was overdue. We walked in silence for a while. Then he said, I always wondered why you didn't fight back harder back then. I did, I said, just not in ways anyone could see. He nodded. You were always smart, scary smart. I smiled. That's what got me in trouble. He stopped walking. You think you'll ever forgive them? I looked out at the frozen pond. Forgiveness isn't the goal. Peace is. He didn't push, just walked beside me. No one had done that in a long time. That evening, I got the official notice. The hospital had closed Rachel's transplant file. She was no longer eligible to receive a kidney from me or from anyone until further review. I forwarded the email to my mother. No message. She replied with a single line. I'm sorry, I should have believed you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put my phone down and turned off the lights. The next morning, I woke up to a news alert. Local PR executive suspended pending internal investigation. There was no name in the headline, but the photo told the story. Rachel, walking briskly out of her office building, sunglasses on, lips pressed tight. I scrolled through the article. Or allegations of workplace manipulation and ethical misconduct. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel pity. I just felt done. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Mara. You've destroyed her, she said, voice shaking. No, I said. She did that herself. She's sick, Jasmine. She could die. She was sick before her kidneys failed, I said. You just didn't want to see it. Mara's voice cracked. You're a traitor to your own bloodline. I laughed. You made your golden child out of garbage and torched what was real in me. She hung up. I didn't call back. That night, Deacon and I sat on my couch, watching a documentary neither of us were really paying attention to. You ever think about leaving? He asked. All the time, I said. But I'm not running anymore. He nodded. Good. We sat in silence for a while. Then he said, You know, I used to think revenge was about getting even. And now? Now I think it's about getting free. I looked at him. Maybe it's both. He smiled. Maybe. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant stars. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was on fire. I felt clean, unburdened, whole. The voicemail from Mara came in just after noon. You are a disgrace. Rachel's in the hospital again. Her numbers are worse. You could have saved her. You chose not to. You'll have to live with that. I deleted it without listening to the end. At 3:15, I pulled into the hospital parking lot for what was supposed to be the final transplant coordination meeting. Not for me, just a formality for the family, the doctors, and Rachel. I wasn't required to attend, but I did. I wanted to see it unravel with my own eyes. The conference room was already full when I walked in. Rachel sat at the head of the table, pale and furious, her arms crossed tight. Mara was beside her, whispering something into her ear. My father stood near the window, jaw clenched, refusing to look at me. Mom sat alone in the corner, clutching her purse like it was an anchor. The transplant surgeon walked in last, flipping through a folder. "Thank you all for coming," he said, settling into his chair. "We've completed the final review regarding the donor eligibility." Rachel perked up. "So when can we schedule the surgery?" The surgeon didn't smile. "There won't be a surgery." Silence. He continued, calm and clinical. "The donor, Jasmine, has been disqualified based on psychological evaluations and documentation of long-term emotional trauma directly connected to the recipient." Rachel's mouth fell open. "What?" Mara leaned forward. "I'm sorry, what trauma?" The surgeon looked at her, then back at Rachel. "There is documented evidence of emotional manipulation, workplace sabotage, and psychological harm. The ethics board ruled that proceeding would endanger the donor's mental health." Rachel stood up. "That's ridiculous. She's lying. She's been trying to ruin me for years." The surgeon didn't flinch. "We have recordings, emails, and third-party witness statements. This decision is final." Rachel turned to me, eyes wild. "You did this. You planned this." I stayed seated. "I told the truth. That's all." "You manipulated the doctor." "No," Dr. Bennett said, stepping into the room. "I evaluated the facts. You gave me plenty." Rachel's voice rose. "This is a setup. She's always been jealous of me." Security appeared at the door before she could finish. The surgeon gestured toward them. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave, Rachel." "You can't do this," she shrieked. "She's sick. She's the one who's sick." The guard stepped forward. Rachel backed away, still shouting. "You'll regret this, Jasmine. You'll regret it." They escorted her out. The door slammed behind them. Mara stood slowly. "You've killed her." I looked her dead in the eye. "No, you did that the day you taught her she could do whatever she wanted and never face consequences." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Dad walked past me without a word. Mom lingered. "Jasmine." I looked at her. "I'm sorry," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded once. "I know." She left. I sat alone in the room with Dr. Bennett. She looked at me. "You okay?" I exhaled. "Yeah." Outside the hospital, the press had already gathered. Microphones, cameras, flashbulbs. Rachel's suspension had gone public. So had the transplant rejection. Someone from the ethics board must have leaked the report. I walked past them without stopping. One reporter shouted my name. Another asked if I had a comment. I kept walking. No sunglasses, no scarf, no shame. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost. I felt real. And finally, free. The phone rang twice before I picked up. "Hey," Mom said, voice soft. "I made lemon bars. Thought I'd drop some off." I glanced at the clock. "You don't have to bring anything." "I want to," she said. "Just for you, no casseroles, no messages." I paused. "Okay, I'll buzz you in." When she arrived, she looked smaller. Not physically, just quieter. She handed me the tin and stepped inside like she wasn't sure she was allowed. "They're still warm," she said, setting them on the counter. I opened the lid. "You remembered I like them without powdered sugar." She smiled faintly. "I remember more than you think." We stood there in silence for a moment. "How's Rachel?" I asked. She blinked. "Still in the hospital. They're looking for another donor. No luck yet." I nodded. "And Dad?" She hesitated. "He's not speaking to me." I raised an eyebrow. "I defended you," she said, "in front of him. For the first time." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, "Thank you." She looked around my apartment like she was seeing it for the first time. "It's nice here. Peaceful." "It is." She picked up a photo from the shelf, me and Deacon, laughing on a park bench. "You look happy." "I'm getting there," She put the photo down. I think I believed her because it was easier than believing I'd failed you. I met her eyes. You didn't fail me. You just didn't fight for me. She nodded slowly. I'm trying now. I walked her to the door. She paused before leaving. I'm proud of you, Jasmine. I really am. I didn't say anything, but I didn't close the door behind her right away either. Later that night, Deacon and I sat on my balcony, wrapped in blankets, sipping tea. You see the news? He asked. I nodded. Rachel's employer let her go. He sipped his tea. She's still not taking responsibility, is she? Never will. He looked out at the street below. You think she'll get a donor? Maybe, maybe not. He turned to me. Would it matter to you if she did? I thought about it. No, not anymore. He nodded, then pulled something from his coat pocket. A folded piece of paper. What's that? He handed it to me. I wrote a letter to HR. Back then, I never sent it. I unfolded it. It was short, honest, regretful. I didn't know how to help you, he said, but I wanted to. You're helping now, he smiled. You ever think about going back to therapy work? I looked out at the city lights. Maybe. I don't know if I want to fix other people yet. I'm still working on myself. He nudged my shoulder. You're doing pretty damn well. I laughed. Don't jinx it. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that didn't need to be filled. The next morning, I opened my inbox and found a message from a former client, someone I'd helped years ago before everything fell apart. I don't know if you still check this, but I just wanted to say thank you. You helped me more than you knew. I hope you're okay. I stared at it for a long time. Then I hit reply. I'm okay, and thank you. That means more than you know. I closed the laptop and looked around my apartment. The plants were alive. The dishes were done. The air felt light. My phone buzzed, a text from Deacon. Walk later? I replied. Yeah, quiet sounds good. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The world hadn't changed, but I had. They asked for a kidney. I gave them consequences instead.